The wide receiver position, to me, obviously, the two top guys are pretty well set, I would think, with Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. And then after that, how would you assess the field of options?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Is a field of options there, and they lost some, some depth from that position. I mean, Zachariah Branch was a 5-star guy, Deuce Robinson, but they were contributors, but they weren't like difference makers. Like you mentioned Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. So that's going to be interesting to see sort of how they kind of fill those roles that where instead of having maybe 4 or 5 guys that they are rolling with, you got your 2 main guys, and then they have to sort of figure out where they go from there. I like Prince Strawn a lot. They're coming over from Boise State, wearing number 17, I believe now. So we get to watch him a little bit, and he looks like he's got some experience. I think he might be someone that can be a good pass catching radius, so you can be a quarterback's friend that way. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where he goes. But there's a few guys, even like a Jalen Richardson or Jay Fair that transferred in last year that did some stuff, but just didn't really do a lot. I think you're going to focus on those 2 guys, and then sort of who can be the best role player coming in after that. So I'm probably going to go with Prince Strawn as my pick for that, but it's early to determine. But I think they feel really good about those top 2 guys, and that's probably where the majority of the offense is going to run through.
Of course, there was a lot of talk this time last year about going into the Big Ten, the physical style of play, the offensive line in particular, which, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, I thought held up fairly well, at least the first, line of guys, and then maybe depth was more of an issue.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that. I think it started with the recruiting aspect at the end of the Clay Helton era, and then they sort of had to clean house. So you didn't have sort of redshirt freshman bodies waiting to sort of emerge, and they kind of had to replenish a lot of those. So they early on they relied on some transfers, and I think it worked pretty well in year 1. The last couple of years, not quite as good. And then, like you mentioned, I think the depth has been a little bit of an issue, but they've recruited that position pretty hard, and they like some of the guys that they've got coming back, but they're going to rely on some transfers as well there. But Jade Mayava you need to be able to protect him a little bit more, and they got a good running back room, and you want to be able to showcase that. And I think they probably didn't run the ball enough last year, and I don't know if it's because they didn't have confidence in the offensive line and being a little shaky, but they had some good success, and they sort of got away from it, almost like trying to prove a point, like, oh, we're going to do this instead of that, where you expect it. But one guy, watch out for Jean-Ray Reed. They call him Big General. He's a center for Syracuse and transferred in. We got to interview him extensively a couple of weeks ago, and just really bright kid. He could have moved on to the NFL, and I think instantly comes in, and he's like your starting center guy. He's just going to take over in the middle of that defense and make the calls. And he's talked about sort of like learning what the terminology is. He knows what to do, and a lot of the times he doesn't know exactly how to say it yet. So I think that's part of the process of being there in the spring. But I think he could be a key for this USC offensive line. If he can be solid there right in the middle, the transfer they got from Syracuse, I think that will kind of spread out and help everybody else out.